Welcome to the Cutie Chronicles, episode 23. This is the episode that I thought episode 16 was, which was an oopsie on my part, because I completely forgot that we got an actual episode of Rainbow doing the Sonic Rainboom before we got this backstory of her doing the Sonic Rainboom. And all this has done is I now understand why I thought that, because both of the episodes together just create a bunch of continuity errors with the Sonic Rainboom, and it upsets me. Anyway, bad friend point, no one really, because everyone is just chill. It's an anthology episode. No one's really doing anything wrong. They're just getting their stories in there. Oh boy, it's season 1 and we've had our third CMC episode. This is kind of what I mean by them being overused. But anyway, we start this CMC episode with the CMC. Shocker. But what is shocking is that they're trying to get cutie marks in ziplining. I'm not entirely sure how that would work. Even Sweetie Belle says they've never heard of ponies ziplining before, which begs the question of how do they know what that is and how does it exist? Which species regularly ziplines and invented it? According to Scootaloo, Spike told her about it. So I guess dragons is our answer? That tracks though. Most dragons are reckless idiots, save for Spike and Ember. Also, random thought, not sure why every time there's a lady dragon in fiction, they decide to name it Ember. I only know 2, but it still feels like it happens a lot. So they start zipping pretty fast, and on about a 10-degree angle, before they suddenly halt and the friction causes their line to snap. So I couldn't find a recommended angle for a zip line, but they do recommend a 3 to 6 foot drop in height from the highest point to the lowest point, which is not adhered to here. If anything, the angle is dramatically sharper, so I'll conclude that them stalling on this line is bull and it shouldn't have happened. Although it might also have been because it was a rope and not a cable. Also, obviously the metal wouldn't heat to red from the friction caused by a standard rope. Now a steel cable, maybe, but still really unlikely. It'd have to be a very long ride with a decently heavy passenger in any case. The trio fall about 1.3 tree lengths, which using some very rough math and measurements taken using the CMC, it would be about 10 CMCs high, maybe more, which I would guesstimate to be about 15 to 20 feet, assuming the CMC are between 1.5 feet and 2 feet tall. I'm lowballing all of this to make a point that they should have probably broken something, maybe even died because of their age. A full-grown adult would suffer severe injury from a 20-foot fall. It's even lethal depending on landing. They did hit some branches and leaves on the way down to slow their fall though, so the lack of dramatic injury is kind of BS. Am I really applying logic to a slapstick haha they fell down scene? Yes I am. But seriously, in episode 21 they showed that injuries are not only possible, but can happen in less severe circumstances. I'm just using the show's own logical consistency to point out things I find nonsensical. Am I destroying some of the fun and whimsy? Maybe. I'm probably going overboard. Let's move on to the actually interesting stuff this episode. I'm just saying paragraphs worth of nonsense at this point. So in only their third episode, second as the CMC, they have already run out of ideas and have started having thoughts of giving up. This feels like it should have been a season 3 opener, but obviously they needed to find some way to get the CMC to meet the main 6 and give us that juicy backstory we need. Apple Bloom is the one to suggest they go ask ponies how they got their cutie marks as well, and if I was to wager a guess, I feel like they're going to pay Applejack a visit first due to that. Each of the 3 want to visit the pony they think is the coolest, and they all name drop their sisters, which is adorable. But while Scootaloo is trying to describe Rainbow for them to guess, she calls the pony she wants to see cool, tough, and fast, and not afraid of anything. Which the other 2 pause and say, oh, Pinkie, which I mean, not entirely wrong, but also why would they believe that? We've only ever seen Pinkie dunked on and disregarded by others this season. Even in this episode, they literally like, oh, she's just being Pinkie. So, I mean, I guess it's just a joke, but still. And yeah, everyone's learning not to be as mean about Pinkie, but it still keeps happening. Not as much recently, but even in this episode, they're like, oh, there goes Pinkie again. Then Scootaloo calls the pony she wants to see the, quote, best flyer to come out of Cloudsdale, end quote, which they guess is Fluttershy. And I would just assume they're messing with Scootaloo, but in a moment, they seem genuinely caught off guard by the Rainbow Dash reveal, so it's just confusing. Oh look, despite them leaving to find Rainbow, they run into Applejack first, like I said. I don't remember the order they visit the main 6 in, so I was just kind of guessing based on how they framed that scene. Anyway, Applejack crashes into them while chasing after some apple-thieving bunnies. Fluttershy's minions have succeeded in securing her a bountiful feast. Apple Bloom then asks Applejack how she got her cutie mark, only for Applejack to question how she never told Apple Bloom that story. I question that too, but I learn new things about my family even to this day, so it kind of tracks. We also see Applejack's expression, hearing that they are going to see Rainbow, and now she gets the idea to upstage Rainbow Dash and steal the spotlight. This is a much more wholesome or cute way to do their rivalry, as it's not really that big of a deal, but it still lets them feel like they're getting the one-up on one another. So apparently, Applejack, while younger than the CMC, was just allowed to leave the farm without supervision to go all the way to Manhattan. Yeah, sure. Anyway, we also don't see their parents even this far into Applejack's past, which means that their parents probably died before Apple Bloom was even born. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. So they're just not here, because obviously they had to have been the ones to give birth to Apple Bloom, because no one else could have. Granny Smith sure as hell ain't doing it, and as we see, Applejack is not nearly old enough, and same with Big Mac. Where the heck are their parents at this point? If Apple Bloom's not here, because Applejack still has their picture in her bindle. Why would she need that if they were still alive? I guess so she remembers, so that she can see them? I guess they don't have to be dead for her to bring a picture of them with her, but it still feels weird, right? This pony's cutie mark is literally the exact same as this one, and the only change was the color and size. We see the apples have cross-married with the oranges. Their names weren't ironic for the Apple family. This is also kind of a cool hint at the backstory for Applejack's parents. Wrong fruit, but the general idea is at least explored here. To me, this means that most of the fruit-based families are related and intermingle a lot, which is neat, but also kind of weird with how much they hold their respective foods as superior. The oranges display that they are entertained by Applejack's southernisms, and they say they'll have her acting like a Manhattanite in no time, only to cut to Applejack putting on a fake as duck smile, with her mane done up like her aunt's. Also, I didn't say it, but the oranges are her aunt and uncle. I didn't actually clarify that. And now Applejack speaks without her accent and uses language we'd expect from Rarity. This kind of forced behavior and changing of her character from her extended family is almost certainly what created the irritation and distaste for Rarity that we saw in episode 8, as she was forced to behave how Rarity behaves naturally, and it dredges up that past trauma. It's definitely a lashing out against some pony that had nothing to do with it type of deal, and while it's still wrong on Applejack's part, we now understand where she comes from and why she needs to grow past it. Oh look, child abuse. Not the physical kind, mind you, but literally failing to properly feed a child in your care. I guess that falls under more of neglect, but I think it also counts as abuse. And I don't mean you're too poor and can't afford to. They are literally rich, high-class ponies eating some fancy schmancy BS, which doesn't have the calories needed for growing kids. Also, random note from this scene is the Manhattanites don't know what a rooster is, which is kind of hilarious, because you don't even have to see one directly to know what it is. This means that their education didn't even cover like agriculture or generic animals. I'm pretty sure animals are like the first thing taught to children in schools. I guess the schools in Manhattan must just suck. Applejack is homesick, and probably literally sick, as she is focused on food and how her real family are probably enjoying some apples right now. That's when we hear the iconic Rainboom sound effect, and we see Rainbow leading Applejack directly home. A literal guiding light showing her her destiny. I take this entire episode and event as fate itself forcing the elements of harmony together in Ponyville. Side note, how can Applejack see Ponyville from there? Pretty sure you can't see Manhattan from Ponyville, and if we consult the map again, they are half a continent away. The curvature of the planet alone would make this impossible, unless the planet is tiny as heck, or Equestria's world is flat! Just kidding. We literally see the planet in the intro, or at least a planet in the intro, and it's spherical. Guess the planets are just tiny, or they messed up the placement since they didn't really have a layout of Equestria finalized at this point in the show. Oh my god, green apples on the trees! And this time it's unequivocally Sweet Apple Acres! I'm free! Free of my curse! Applejack realizing she was meant to be with her family on the farm is what causes her cutie mark to appear, in case you forgot that all these stories were, how they got their marks. I know it seems like we've been talking about a bunch of other stuff. And hey look, at that, Applejack realizing something made her mark appear. I feel like I'm earning a degree in cutie markology. This is random, but for some reason a lot of these trees only have apples on one half. That's it, just something weird. Fluttershy runs in front of the CMC to stop them from running over some ducks crossing the road. She also criticizes them for going too fast, which I would say is Fluttershy being overcautious, but I myself have said Scootaloo goes way too fast in populated areas, so I'm with my homegirl on this one. Fluttershy explains that she wouldn't have gotten her cutie mark if it wasn't for Rainbow Dash, which is true, but not nearly as wholesome as you might think. Fluttershy reveals that she was always a weak flyer, and while we have assumed that, given her wings lock up from fear and such, but hearing it directly stated is a good confirmation because she gets like 2 whole episodes focused on her trying to fly better, so making it unambiguous is very helpful. Oh look, it's the bullies who said the Rainboom wasn't real. I'll just save that for the end of the episode, but they call Fluttershy Clutzershy and begin the obnoxious teasing. Why are their tongues blue? What is this, Ed, Ed, and Eddie? Also, their pupils and irises are hiding their sclera for some reason, which isn't really normal for fillies or colts, so I don't know why it's happening. And yeah, I mean, I did point out that one of the voice actors for the bullies was Kevin from Ed, Ed, and Eddie, so it's actually kind of a funny nod. I don't think it was on purpose, but it's quite serendipitous that it happened. See, the sclera is normal now. I genuinely couldn't remember if it was sclera or sclera, so I'm just gonna say both, and we'll call it even. Baby Rainbow Dash to the rescue! She's demonstrating right here that she had her ride or die mentality ever since she was young, which is cool. They give us a tease of the Rainbow Dash portion of the episode, with her challenging the bullies to a race. Also, just a fun point of order, the leader of the bullies doesn't have his cutie mark, but Hoops already has his. Random detail. Also, they had Fluttershy be the officiator, which is weird, but that random decision is another of Fate's machinations, I guess, as it's the only way for her to get her mark is to be put in this position. Fluttershy gets knocked off the cloud by Rainbow Dash and falls to her death. Turns out the Fluttershy telling the story is just a changeling who's been living her life. Weird thing to reveal this episode, but cool. Okay, obviously not true. But yeah, this type of event probably caused the whole Fluttershy wings cramping up when scared habit she got, because, this would be kind of traumatizing. Okay, so an absolute armada of butterflies, that's the scientific name by the way, catch an at least 40-pound pony? You know how much weight a butterfly can hold? None! It literally can't carry anything other than like pollen. You can't look me in the eyes and tell me fate isn't pulling some massive BS to make this all happen. Fluttershy reveals that butterflies don't fly as high as Cloudsdale, naturally, but also that she had never been on the ground before. She exclusively lived in the clouds, which is kind of insane at first thought, up because it's how come her parents never took her down for any reason, but when we meet her parents, it's perfectly in character, I believe it. While I do enjoy the little ditty she sings, it's not really long enough for a full review. But basically she's saying, hooray, this place is great. That being said, how does she know about squirrels, bees, and bunnies? She knew all of their names. Does Cloudsdale have a better education system than Manhattan? That's not really surprising, to be honest. And obviously the only reason I'm even asking this question is because she said herself that she had never been under the ground. Also random detail, but I don't think we ever see a filly with legs as long as Fluttershy's were. It kind of helps explain the clumsiness she had, which led to her getting bullied in the first place. Also, I'm a little disappointed that we never got like varying heights, because I feel like Fluttershy would probably be the tallest at this point. But the only reason we don't have varying heights is because that would be a lot more work for the animators, obviously. But if there was varying heights, I feel like Fluttershy would be the tallest. Fluttershy sees the sonic rain boom and all the animals get scared by the, loud noise. Fluttershy, then determined not to let her new paradise escape her, moves to help and calm down the animals. So the whole Rainbow got her cutie mark thing is technically correct, but it's mostly Rainbow pushed her off the clouds to the ground, almost killing her. She gets saved by literal fate, and then Rainbow scares her beloved creatures away, so not the most wholesome way to help someone get their cutie mark, I guess. But that scaring it away did help Fluttershy, realize her talent and idea. And in the future, at least Fluttershy has a positive correlation with the event, so I guess that's what really matters most. And Fluttershy realizing she had the ability to communicate with animals on a different level gives her cutie mark. Also, the way ponies get their cutie mark in these flashbacks and the way the CMC get their mark are so vastly different that I'm not entirely sure if the CMC are special or if they just decided to change it to be more dramatic later on. The CMC go to Rarity's to see if she knows where Rainbow is, and they get roped into being mannequins. Well, they're posing for dresses like you would expect. Rarity hears them complaining about not getting to hear from Rainbow, so she goes into her backstory, where we see Cheerly here. So I guess Rarity's about the same age as Cheerly, which is a neat detail, and personally feels like it corroborates the ages I listed beforehand, with Rarity being the oldest. Since, Cheerly seems to be on the older end of the main six spectrum, she just gives off that more mature vibe. Rarity apparently always wanted to be a fashionista, and she always styled her mane the way she does. Also, if you're wondering about that previous scene, that was Rarity designing dresses for the school play. Anyway, we never see any farther back than this for Rarity, so I'm not entirely sure what caused her to want to be a fashionista in the first place. In fact, I don't know if we ever meet or see Rarity's parents, to come to think of it. We do for the rest of the main six, but for the life of me, I can't remember Rarity's, which is extra weird considering her being my favorite. I'm pretty sure they're not dead since Sweetie Belle was sent to Rarity by them. At least I think that's what's said. This is something I should look up because it's going to bother me, but I'm actually going to wait until I see the episode that might have them in it, or if a comment just tells me. Another instance of what I can only call fate. Rarity's horn starts glowing and it forcibly pulls her over a day. Jesus, she should be in dire straits without food or water, especially at this age. And Rarity gets pulled all the way to a rock. And the adult Rarity that's commentating says that unicorn magic doesn't happen without a reason, sort of implying that it was indeed fate. She also says that she was confident that this was related to her cutie mark. So do unicorns just get magical help in getting their mark? Because Twilight also has some magic BS that's going to happen that gets her cutie mark. Rarity's child self, however, complains about her horn bringing her to a rock and that her destiny is just a rock. However, then the sonic rain boom erupts overhead, cleaving the rock in twain, revealing the gemstones inside, allowing Rarity to realize that her desire to become a fashionista is indeed her destiny. Lyra 37, Bonbon 42, and Derpy 31. That trio also appear as adults here, as well as Twilight's Canterlot friends and most of the Ponyville regulars, which is obviously impossible due to the timeline. They can't even be changelings because their adult forms wouldn't have existed yet to copy. They could have randomly become these, but of course that's way too much coincidence for me. Also, I'm now mad that we got deprived of seeing a tiny little filly version of Derpy and Bonbon and Lyra. That would have been adorable! Rarity's perfected designs are just the same thing with gems literally shoved in. Not her best work, or even good work at all. The original designs were fine without them. But everyone loves it, so whatever, I guess. Scootaloo complains that all these stories are boring and all about finding who you truly are. Hilarious. They then hard cut, like straight up hard cut to them listening to Twilight telling them about her cutie mark. Not even trying to find a transition for them to meet. And I'm just realizing it now, but the CMC deciding to ask the literal 6 chosen ones about how they got their marks was destined to fail, since the main 6 were chosen by fate and magic itself to be who they are, to be the elements of harmony. So they were nowhere near normal in terms of cutie mark acquisition. Bonbon 43, another flashback where the ponies that shouldn't be around are Derpy 32. Oh right, Twilight's explaining how she always wanted to go to the summer sun celebration and see Celestia raise the sun, and says that day was the most amazing thing she ever saw. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by, the lack of continuity. Lyra 38, curse you, continuity! Also, yeah, I'm not counting the Bonbon because again, I just counted her in this flashback. Celestia blinds every pony in the audience with her solar flare! Also, Twilight claims she always wanted to come, making it seem like she finally convinced her parents to take her, but she's here alone, so I have no idea who's supervising a literal child. She is from Canterlot, so she obviously knows the place well enough, but it's still not really responsible. The Summer Sun celebration is what caused Twilight to throw herself into magic. She even starts out in the same place that we see Sweetie Belle start at, where she can barely lift an object. In this case, it's a simple book page even. This is a good subtle way of showing that even the most impressive of unicorns start at basically the same place as everyone else. We don't really talk about the outlier Starlight Glimmer. Let's ignore her for now. Hey, we see Twilight's parents for the first time. Don't remember their names, but I'll cover it when they get actual speaking roles. They enrolled her, and she got accepted to the Princess Celestia's Academy for Gifted Unicorns. We also see her dad is nervous and her mom is trying to console him. This does end up fitting their personalities pretty well down the line, so that's good foreshadowing. To get into the program, Twilight has to pass an exam, and what do they want a literal child trying to learn magic to do to enter the program? Forcibly hatch a dragon egg. This is different for every student, yeah? Because there'd be more baby dragons like Spike in Equestria if this was a regular occurrence. If it is random every time, then this is once again fate giving Twilight a monumental task and also putting Spike into her life. And just as Twilight is going to give up, the sonic rainboom erupts, which somehow causes Twilight's magic to explode. Huh. Kinda literally, she starts going completely out of control. She successfully hatches Spike before the magic starts going wild and causing all sorts of phenomenon to happen. Her parents are terrified, by the way, not even in a worried kind of way. They look scared of their daughter. If Twilight could have seen this may have gone a lot worse. Also, I just noticed this during the recording phase, but why is this guy's Cutie mark music notes? Why is like a music teacher reviewing a magic test for a random filly? He's probably the music teacher of the school, but why is he here for this? Better question is, why isn't Celestia here for this? I imagine because she's busy as heck and she's delegated, but this is still kind of an important deal, seeing as it's a relatively hard to get into school. As for the various phenomena she causes to happen, she makes the judges levitate, and she changes her parents into plants, which is insanely morbid. The fact that transfiguration magic can work on ponies is horrifying to think about. They're obviously fine, but this must do major damage to one's psyche. She also grows Spike to a massive size, effectively aging him into a full adult dragon, even though he does look different when he actually does age to a full adult dragon. And I don't even mean like at the end of the series, I mean like in that other episode, I think the Trixie one. No, the Rarity one where she gets the stupid amulet. Anyway, in the future Trixie episode specifically, Twilight mentions that age spells are insanely difficult and only the most powerful unicorns can manage it. So if this was an age spell, that's some good foreshadowing. Also, for the Rarity episode, it might have been a book and not an amulet. Or maybe it was both. I know the Trixie episode had an amulet. This is off topic. Ignore me. We even get to see a special treat of a very serious Celestia when she notices the problem is going on. Get ready for some action! Celestia hype! Not really, but you know, it's nice to see. And what does she do? She doesn't show up and do a fancy spell or some amazing thing to fix the situation. She just approaches the convulsing and in pain, out of control filly Twilight and gives her comfort. Absolute badass. Celestia explains that she's never seen a unicorn with her raw power and talent, despite the fact that she knew Star Swirl the Bearded, and she and her sister are alicorns. So Celestia invites Twilight to be her personal protege, meaning Twilight didn't attend the school normally, and she was trained personally by Celestia, making Twilight not knowing Philomena even more insane in my brain. You know, from last episode. Also, Spike sucking on his own tail is really adorable. It's very funny. Twilight's parents, despite the fact that they did look severely traumatized after they had been restored from being plants, are now super excited for Twilight and encourage her to take Celestia's offer. Just from these brief looks we've seen of her parents, they're caring, understanding, and supportive, which is refreshing for parent characters to just be nice, good people and not have any other weird stuff going on. Of course, in the later episode, they do get their weird quirks shown off, but still. And that's how she got her mark. She didn't actually really realize anything. I think this was just reality placing this burden upon her, which makes it a bit more tragic, but also Twilight loves magic and was probably just thrilled about the way her life was going, so it's not entirely all bad, it just feels bad. Maybe her realization was that she's not a failure because she was recognized by Celestia. Maybe that's what it is. Bon 44. I promise I am being more reserved. I do usually wait for several scenes to take place between counting them. There's just a lot of these three being used this episode. Pinkie inserts herself into the scene. Hey, at least she's wearing a helmet. Safety first. Long. Pinkie is trying to convince the CMC to go to Sugar Cube Corner because she wants to go there too and not for any other underlying reason. And now for Pinkie's backstory, which does help explain a lot about her. Here we see Limestone Pie and Marble Pie. This is before Marble changes her hair to be more distinct. And in fact, all of the Pie kids have the same mane and tail style. Pinkie reveals she used to live and work on a rock farm. She further explains that there was no smiling or talking, only rocks. Horrible environment for developing kids. Pinkie's parents aren't intentionally harmful, but they are horrible parents just from these types of negligence. Also, we don't see Maud in the backstory, which makes me think that they made her up later for some reason. Not entirely sure what the reason could be. Also, Pinkie says they were in the south field rotating rocks to the east field? What? Why? How does moving the rocks do anything? What are they even farming? I still to this day don't understand Pinkie's Pinkie's family living situation. Considering they live on rock soup and the like, I refuse to believe that this isn't severe child neglect. Also, despite the poor living conditions, Pinkie's parents decided to have 4 flipping kids. The worst kind of parents are those that have kids when they aren't ready for them or able to care for them properly. In what is probably the most directly Rainboom inspired backstory, Pinkie seeing the Rainboom simply ignites a spark of joy in her that she had never known she had, which is once again probably fate picking her for the element of laughter. Also, random note, I'm not entirely sure how genetics work in Equestria, but Pinkie is pink while her entire family is grayscale. Someone cheated on someone. Most parents have some color variation in the same spectrum as their kids, and I'm pretty sure there are some exceptions, sure, but it's kept decently consistent. Rainbow's parents are blue, Twilight's are purple, Applejack's are orangey, Fluttershy's are yellow and blue, but Pinkie has brown and gray parents. Where did that come from? Either there's some dark infidelity lore going on here, or maybe Pinkie just has like a genetic mutation that causes her coat to change colors. The Rainboom is also what gave Pinkie her iconic hairstyle. The joy she felt after seeing this amazing view is what pushed her to want to make other people smile like her, but rainbows are fleeting and she had to decide how to make people smile without them, so she decided on parties. And we finally see Pinkie's mom, and we learn Pinkie's full name, which I referenced earlier in episode 5, Pinkamena Diane Pie, one of the few ponies we get a full name of. Similarly, the Pie family are the only ones whose family name is actually their last name. Twilight Sparkle isn't her last name, as Shining Armor isn't called Shining Armor Sparkle, just Shining Armor. Naming schemes in this show were weird AF. Here's the full shot of the family, and as we can see, no Maud is around. And somehow, her dour stoic family decide they love Pinkie's party that she's throwing for them, despite never breaking composure like this really ever again. Well, it's cute and wholesome, so I'll allow it. Limestone's reaction might seem the weirdest, but we actually learn why she becomes the way she does in the future. Same with Marble Pie, so no real problems on that front. I'll cover it then, of course, when we get to that episode. Pinkie realizes that the joy of her family make her feel happy. Thus, she becomes the pony that's desperate to make others happy at any cost, which is kind of sad. Even more so when she loses that identity in so many episodes later. And the CMC finally arrive at Sugar Cube Corner, where it turns out the main 6 contacted Rainbow and all gathered here for the CMC to give them what they wanted. Super wholesome of the main 6 to get together and help the CMC out, even more so by Pinkie guiding them here secretly, so it's a surprise. They remove that kind of subtlety with Pinkie later on as well, and even more reason I hate later series Pinkie. Even in the Gilda episode, she had better subtlety than what she gets. And we finally get the race that was hinted at earlier. Random note, I just noticed that half the crowd in the shot where Fluttershy falls to her death are adults. Why did none of them try to follow or catch her or save Fluttershy? And as I'm saying that, none of them have wings. In fact, that's literally Twinkleshine, although I don't think she even has her cutie mark. She doesn't have her mark. No wonder no one helps Fluttershy. They don't have wings because they're not supposed to be here, because they're like, there's literally no way for them to be here other than the magic spell. 2 of them are unicorns, so they maybe use that, but then how'd they get to these very tiny isolated clouds? This shot's worse than I thought it was. I just noticed this while doing like my editing. Literally the first turn and the first bully is already gone. Rainbow remarks that she never felt the way she did before. The speed, the adrenaline, the wind in her mane. And the only thing she liked more than flying fast was winning, giving way to her competitive nature. And thus, a much smaller, much slower Rainbow Dash somehow pulls off the Rainboom for the first time in a race with 2 bullies who denied it existed. Episode 16 hates continuity, and it bothers me more than it should. Also, don't give me the they didn't notice because they were incapacitated shtick. Hoops, it was fine, he just spun out. And again, this boom crossed all of Equestria, so there's no way they couldn't have seen it. They could have denied she was the one who did it, but they don't do that. They deny it ever happening. Rainbow even repeats that every pony thought it was an old mare's tail. So yeah, I'm still upsetty spaghetti at this. But yeah, that's how Rainbow got her mark. It's mostly realizing how much she loves flying and competing. The main 6 realize that Rainbow's Sonic Rainboom helped them all get their cutie marks, and Fluttershy says they had a connection before they even met. And they all remark how they were destined to be BFFs forever. If only they knew how true that was. Now, instead of Spike being the one to get the ick from emotions, it's Scootaloo. Fitting personality-wise and less cringe for the show in the long term. Good choice. Twilight's letter to Celestia is just a bunch of nothingness. It's like a bunch of fate and circumstance stuff, nothing to really go on. First episode without a real lesson, which is kind of weird. Let's just move to the outro. Alright, and that was the Cutie Mark Chronicles. All in all, for, an anthology episode, basically, it was alright. I do wish we got, more dedicated backstory episodes for the main characters, so that way we can actually go more in depth about how that experience in their past helped forge them into who they are today. But I guess they just didn't feel like it, and this is the best we're gonna get, really. Other than that, the CMC don't really have any major importance to this episode, so I'm not actually that upset about them being featured here as sort of like the connecting piece for all of this. All in all, I think I'm just gonna give this one a 6 out of 10 because there's just too many weird decisions they made. Like, all of them being able to go off alone with no supervision to do things, Applejack just being able to see across the continent for no reason, Rarity's horn arbitrarily pulling her to her destination. Like, I am making the episode better in my own brain by just saying it's fate and like the elements of harmony forcing them together, but that's not really anything that's ever communicated by the story, at least not at this point in the story. It might be talked more about when the elements come into more of a play, but yeah, it's a good episode. It's just got a lot of problems. It doesn't insult the character of anyone. It's just a lot of mess ups.